Hi, my name is Haley. I have PKU, and I'm here to talk about some issues with being off diet. The PKU community is very small but very connected, and I love that about it. I wasn't very involved in the PKU community until the last couple years, and I've found a lot of comfort in other people's experiences and other people's just being so supportive of each other. So, my story is a long one, and anybody who knows me knows I don't tell short stories, so I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible. And I'm hoping to make a few different videos and go in detail on different topics, like in my experiences. But I'm going to start with being off diet. And this is probably, in my opinion, the most important one because diet obviously is the biggest experience of this. It's the most shared experience of having PKU is the PKU diet. So, let's see, I'm 22 years old and I was diagnosed right at birth. I live in the US in the Midwest, and as a child, I did follow the diet pretty well. I kept it to the dietitian's recommendations. I took the formulas. I never really liked them, and my dietitians always said, "Oh, when you're older, you can probably just go off diet." A lot of people have done that in the past, and no one ever really told me any problems with it. Just, yeah, you can probably go off diet. And as a kid, I had no idea. I didn't realize how it affected me at all. I was just a little kid. You don't notice things like anxiety or lack of attention or concentration or whatever. You don't notice that when you're a little kid. So when I was probably 11, 12 years old, I stopped taking the diet very seriously and I started eating a lot of things I shouldn't eat, like just huge amounts of food. First of all, I definitely ate too much, but protein like meat, and I was mainly off diet for probably the next 10 years, and I I didn't notice how it affected me at all. I just thought, okay, I get to eat now and I feel full. That's great. Um, but as a teenager, I started to develop severe anxiety and disordered eating, and that was definitely connected to having PKU, but I didn't really see that at the time. I didn't see that having PKU was affecting me so much. I mean, I was a very shy teenager. I was a very nervous teenager. I was a terrible student. I was just exhausted all the time, and I never put any effort into doing homework if I did it at all. Luckily, I was a decent test taker, so I did graduate high school. Um, and then after high school, I went to beauty school and I made it through just fine. Actually, I really enjoyed it, and I was actually a pretty great student in beauty school, but my mental health was very, very compromised. My anxiety was at peak levels, like just terrible, terrible. Like, if something upset me, my hands would start shaking uncontrollably, and like someone would point it out and say, "What's wrong?" And I was under a lot of stress in my personal life. But again, I connected that stress and that anxiety to something other than PKU. It wasn't because, oh, I'm eating protein. At that point, I had switched to mostly plant proteins. I wasn't eating meat very much, but I was eating a lot of nuts and cheese and bread and dairy. I've never drank milk. I've never drank dairy milk ever because it just seems gross to me. Not growing up on it, but cheese, yeah. Nuts, yeah. But anyway, I never connected all the issues that I had to my PKU. Again, it was just, I'm under a lot of stress. I must just be a nervous person. I had just awful anxiety and I didn't sleep at all because I drank so much coffee because I was so tired. So I developed insomnia. Let me tell you, that's a bad combination. Insomnia, anxiety, coffee, and being off diet, it was rough. um, Anyway, in the year after I graduated beauty school and started working was when I really started to try to make changes. I had a concussion just before I graduated beauty school, and I remember feeling so dazed and so confused and more exhausted than usual and just a mess. Like I would lose things immediately after setting them down. drop things, forget important dates, just all the time. It was bad. And it lasted a couple months. And my doctor said, you should be fine. It wasn't a super severe concussion. You should start to feel better after a month or so. And I didn't. Um, and I realized because I was now aware of the symptoms that I was having, because of the concussion, these symptoms weren't going away. I wasn't really ever going to shake that lack of concentration, that forgetfulness, that fatigue. So it was around that time, in the fall of 2016, that I started trying to address my diet. And I started trying to completely avoid meats and avoid cheese. Um, I didn't do very well with it until that winter. I just kind of hit a low point. A lot of stuff going on in my personal life that got to be too much, and finally my mental health was just too much and I had to address it somehow. So I went to a clinic appointment for my PKU, which I hadn't done in probably 4 or 5 years at that point. And I talked about getting back on diet, and I talked about Kuvan and, trying to get better. And it wasn't until that was December, that was the end of December. And after that, I started weaning off of meat completely. I was off of meat completely after that. And then shortly to follow, I stopped eating cheese and then nuts and then other plant proteins. And then I went down to what was my recommended tolerance, which was 15 grams of protein a day after I got my Kuvan approved and I started taking Kuvan. And I ate 15 grams of protein a day, which for me was like nothing because I'd eaten so much before, but now that's natural to me to only eat 15 grams of protein. Um, anyway, I took Kuvan. Before I started, I took a blood draw after a week of eating 15 grams a day, and my level was, I believe, a 14 after eating 15 grams of protein a day. And I didn't have formula at that time. But over the next week, I started taking Kuvan and formula for sure. And my level went from a 14 to a 4. So that was unbelievable to me. I never thought that that could happen. I didn't have many side effects from Kuvan. It was an adjustment mentally and physically to feel better. It was an adjustment to have my brain basically detoxing. I remember, excuse me, I'm kind of got the sniffles. I remember crying to my mom on the phone because my stomach was upset at first and I was just going through a lot with this change. My stomach would get upset and I was always hungry, which I wasn't totally used to yet, and I wasn't used to the formula, but after only a few weeks, I was a completely different person than I was before going back on diet. I was energetic. I was much more focused. I was happier for sure. My anxiety got much better. So the main change I saw with my anxiety after going back on diet is that I didn't have panic attacks anymore, but my anxiety was ongoing. It wasn't cured from going back on diet, but I will say I was depressed for sure before I went back on diet, and that changed. Definitely. That was a 180. I was so much happier. I had so much more positivity. Um, so yeah, my mental health has really, really changed. So much for the better. I am more confident. I don't struggle so much with depression at all, actually, really anymore. I do still struggle with anxiety, but not even a fraction to the extent that I used to. Um, yeah, I mean, I I can't even. I wish that I could explain to my younger self how much it was going to change my life to go back on diet, because when you're off diet, you don't see what it's doing to you. You don't see that it's affecting every aspect of your life. When I worked and I was off diet, I was forgetful. I was zombie like. It was awful. And like I said, just forgetful, tired, anxious, disorganized. And it's not something you see. Your brain is not working properly. And I know lots of people are off diet. And I know a lot of people say it works for them, and I was one of them. I was a person who said it's fine. I'm fine. And obviously everything I've told you doesn't sound like I was fine, but to the rest of the world I seemed fine. And I thought everything was normal, and it wasn't. And So along with going to beauty school, I really wanted to study nutrition. I really wanted to do that and go to college, but my grades were bad. I wasn't a good student and I had absolutely no confidence that I could do it 100%. Did not believe I could do it and did not have the focus to do it. And just going back on diet for a couple years, I've learned so much about myself and I've become so much stronger as a person. Like, I can't even explain how different I feel than I did 3 years ago. I feel like a completely different person. Like, I feel like I was half a zombie walking around before. And now I have goals and I have dreams and I have things that I'm actually working towards. And before, I feel like I was just kind of going along with everything, going with the flow and, just existing. And now I feel like I'm really living and I'm really doing things that I've always wanted to do. So I actually did start school this year. I started college and it was really scary. It took about 2 years of convincing myself. Well, in the grand scheme of things, it took a lot longer than that. But it took me a long time to actually decide and convince myself I can do this and go. And it was the best thing I've ever done. And I couldn't be happier. Like, I love school. I love being a student. And I absolutely didn't used to. Um, But anyway, my whole point of this video is just to give people some perspective of being off diet and being on diet, what the difference is. And it affected my personal relationships. It affected how I treated my friends and my family and how thoughtful I could be and how well I could listen to people and be there for people. I mean my relationships with friends and family struggled so much when I was off diet because I was so anxious and so disorganized and so oblivious to certain things. Like, I would really hurt people. And I know a lot of people with PKU are very empathetic and very caring, very sensitive people. And to hurt someone for me is it literally hurts me. So it was never intentional. It was just things I did on accident because I couldn't see what was happening around me. I didn't understand it. So how I want to end this video is just giving some advice to people. Um, I know this is hard, and I know everybody has different experiences, and I've actually online when I've posted about PKU or when I've just posted on my PKU page but other topics, been kind of, well, one time pretty brutally insulted just because someone basically said, you don't know what it's like to have PKU, you have a higher tolerance, you're on Kuvan, you've never really been on diet, you were off diet for almost a decade. And it was really hurtful because I think that PKU is a unique experience for everyone. There are definitely things that we can bond over and that we share for sure. Many things that I feel people without PKU can't ever really understand. But everyone has a different experience. And the mental effects of PKU affect everyone the same. And I know some people can only have 4 grams of protein a day, some people can have 15, but either way, your experiences are still a struggle and they're still real and they still matter. It doesn't matter if you are off diet, you're still struggling. If you're on diet, you're still struggling. Even if every level you get comes back perfect, you still are going to feel PKU. You're still going to feel it. You're still going to get fatigued. And I'm really sensitive to what I eat and my sleep, especially my sleep. But anyway, I want to give some advice to people who are off and on diet. If you're off diet, I just want to say, I know it's hard to get on diet. I know it's really hard to take care of yourself. But if you just make the smallest steps towards change, just cutting out certain things and adding other things, eventually habits will form. And I swear it can be attainable. I thought it would be the hardest thing ever, and it became so effortless after I got back into the swing of things and really started to take care of myself and understand how I feel. So if you're off diet, I hope the best for you. I hope that you are able to have the resources you need and the support you need. And I hope you know there are always people in the community for you to reach out to, including myself. To parents of children with PKU, I know my parents did absolutely the best they could with what they had. Never perfect, but I would say just help your children to understand the gravity of what they're going through, and that the diet is important. It does affect your life. And that's so hard for a child to understand. But as they get older, keep trying to instill that in them, because I I have the biggest regret of my life is going off diet. I'll say it. It's hard to say. It really is, because I'm the kind of person who says keep moving forward, don't look back. But it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, because I still feel setbacks from it. I still am forgetful. I still am a little bit hard when it comes to attention. It's difficult for me. And that's all I can say is it was literally the biggest regret of my life. And kids rebel, kids make mistakes, and you can come back from it. It's not like my life ended because I went off diet. It just got a little more complicated, a lot more complicated. So yeah, just help them to understand the gravity of the situation. Um, and I don't know. I'm so grateful for this community. I'm so grateful that I have all these people that I can relate to and talk to. And I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you all know how remarkable you are and how strong you all are, because it's not easy. It is not easy to have your entire life revolve around food. So if you have PKU and you're out there, whether you're off diet, on diet, struggling to get back on diet, struggling to lower your levels, whatever it is, I hope you know that you're remarkable and you should be proud of yourself, because this is not an easy life. Thank you.